Hello, my friends, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Ellen, and I am so excited to be back talking about all things goal setting. I love this. I nerd out on goal setting processes. You've probably already seen a little bit of that on my channel, especially with my Notion systems. But if you are new here, welcome. And if you're not, welcome back, because today we are going to be talking about an alternative to SMART goals. Because if you're like me, you probably hate SMART goal setting. I've always thought there are parts of goal setting that are helpful, that are good moves for us to make and good things for us to think about. But simultaneously, there have always been things about SMART goal setting that have just irked me. I'm also realizing that my camera's cockeyed, so we're going to straighten this. I think we're good now. Anyways, back to this. So if you hate SMART goal setting, what I'm going to be giving you today is an alternative to the SMART goal setting test, what I call a transformation test. And this is something that I use in lieu of SMART goal setting to basically just make sure that the goals I'm setting are good goals for me to set and are setting me up for success, basically. And what with it being New Year's, this seemed like a good time to talk about this transformation test. So let's definitely get into it. Before we do, though, I am hosting a workshop that is going to be happening on January 4th at 5 p.m. Pacific time, 8 p.m. Eastern time. I had to do a time zone conversion in my head really quickly as I said that. And in that, I'm going to be diving even more deeply into some important things to consider to help you achieve more with less burnout. Really achieve the goals that you're setting out to achieve, but do it with less burnout. I will be hosting that inside of my free burnout and stress management community. The link is in the description below. So if that's something you're interested in, definitely check that out. But with that, let's go ahead and let's get into our transformation test. So just like you might expect, this test, kind of like the SMART goal setting, spells the word transform. So each of the important aspects of this test are going to spell out transform, which makes it a little easier for us to remember. And the first part of the transformation test is that a goal needs to be timely. This is definitely taking a page from SMART goal setting, but frankly, it is important that when we are setting goals, that we have a target deadline, a specific timeline over which we are trying to achieve that goal. I am a firm believer that not only does this importantly set some urgency to our goal setting process, because otherwise it might make us a little lazy, but I also think it's really important because often I find goals aren't realistic. It's the timeline over which we are trying to achieve those goals that is often unrealistic. That's something I don't like about SMART goal setting, is it kind of is saying dumb down your goal. I don't think you should dumb down your goal. I think if anything, you might need to shift the timeline there. So that is a big reason why I actually recommend quarterly goals, so that we can stay on track with our goals. We can kind of benchmark our goals down into milestones, and it gives us that a little bit more urgency when we are setting our goals. So that is step one, timely. Make sure your goal has a timeline attached to it. Step two of the SMART goal setting system is make the goal a little risky. This is the first big deviation from SMART goal setting because I don't like realistic. As I kind of already hinted at, I don't like the realistic step in SMART goal setting. I get why they have it. We need to make sure that we're not setting ourselves up for failure and that we're not setting a goal that isn't practical for us to achieve. But here's my opinion. Most goals are actually practical. It's the timeline over which we set them that isn't practical. Do you want to compete in a triathlon? Awesome, you should do that. Do you want to do it in a month? Okay, well, that's probably not going to happen. But that doesn't mean a goal of competing in a triathlon is a bad goal. I think maybe over the month you should say, I want to do a 10K or I want to do a 5K or whatever seems reasonable and practical for your skill set. But set the risky goal. Push yourself, but make sure the timeline over which you are setting the goal is the part that is practical. Not your goal, the timeline. The other big reason I like this is because we need to challenge ourselves. Too easy isn't motivating. I actually feel like that's why a lot of people fall off track with their goals, is because they make them, quote, realistic. That's not a fun goal for us to show up for. That's not something exciting that we feel like is going to add to our life. So what can be a good way to go about doing this is kind of setting tiered goals. So set a goal that is a comfortable goal, a goal that is kind of the bare minimum, the one that you know you can achieve if you sit down and you put in the work. That's our comfy goal. Then set a growth goal, a goal that's gonna push you outside of your comfort zone and challenge yourself a little bit more. You know you're gonna have to push a little bit beyond what is comfortable to achieve that goal. And then finally, set the intimidating goal. The intimidating goal is the one that maybe makes you a little bit nervous to actually articulate, the one that you're kind of hesitant to even speak words to, because this is the one that maybe isn't as likely to happen, but it's the super exciting one that you're kind of gunning for. That's what I love about this risky notion, is it challenges us to push ourselves to get a little bit uncomfortable and to do something that's actually exciting and motivating for us. So T is for timely, R is for risky. Now A is for actionable. This is something that I think smart goal setting actually forgets, because your goal has to be something that you have control over achieving. It has got to be something that you can accomplish by the direct actions that you take. Like, honestly, as much as I want to say, oh, take my business full time, that's not an actionable goal. Even an income goal in a lot of ways isn't an actionable goal. And ultimately, I believe this because you can't make your customers buy. What you are in control over is launching that product. You are in control over talking about it every single day on Instagram. If you want to grow your YouTube channel, ultimately, you're not necessarily in control over whether people click subscribe, but what you are in control over is how consistently you show up and put out content for the people who are subscribers. The quality of your videos, does it have good content in them? Is this stuff that people are searching for? That's all stuff that you can control. Those are actions that you have control over. But I think we do ourselves a disservice, and honestly, this is one of the things that I struggle with a little bit sometimes when it comes to goal setting. I think we do ourselves a disservice when we set a goal that frankly we don't actually have any control over achieving. Yeah, the exciting goal might be to take your business full time, and maybe that is the outcome that you are shooting for, but we can't make that the goal because we aren't sometimes in control over achieving that thing. I'd be interested to hear what you think about this. Is this new for you? Do you completely disagree with me? But this has just kind of been my experience, that if I set myself up for a goal that I don't actually have control over achieving, a lot of times for me it backfires. And it backfires for me because things like take my business full time or hit a 10K month or whatever, those are outcomes. And those outcomes are things that we can get so stuck on sometimes that we don't celebrate our other successes. So make sure it is actionable. Make sure that it is something that you have direct control over achieving, that your actions can eventually lead to the end outcome. The next part of the transformation test is to make sure your goal is non-negotiable. This is one I also neglect sometimes. Sometimes I'll set a goal because I think I should, or because it sounds good to set that goal. But in actuality, it's not something I really want. This has to be a part of the goal setting process, in my opinion. It has to be a non-negotiable, because if we're going to be pouring our precious time and energy into a goal, we can't have a half-hearted commitment. It has to be something that we truly want. I always love that quote, and I have no idea who originally said it, but I feel like I say it all the time now. Never half-ass anything, always use your full ass, and that applies to your goals too, okay? So we've talked timely, we've talked risky, we've talked actionable, we've talked non-negotiable. The next step in our transformation test is specific. This is another one straight from Smart Goal Setting. It is nothing new, but we have to make sure our goal is specific. And the reason why we have to do that is we have to have clarity on what our goals are. And that clarity comes from having specificity of precisely what we are aiming to achieve. This is also going to become important later, and it's also really important for flow. If you're somebody who's interested in getting into a flow state, that specificity and that clarity is also really important for flow. But I digress. We're talking about the transformation test right now. That clarity is going to be really, really important for you to be able to measure your goal, which we're going to talk about later, but also for you to know exactly when you are done achieving the goal you're setting out for. And when I say specificity, I'm talking pages written, miles run. You need to know precisely when and if our goal has been achieved, which is going to become really important later when we talk about one of our last steps. But it's not also just about our goals. When I say specificity, it's also about the action steps that you're taking to achieve the goal in question. Those need to be specific as well, so when you sit down to work on the goal, you know what needs to be done. We are diving into this more in a training inside of my Anti-Burnout Collective Inner Circle membership. This is my monthly membership for those of you who are interested in learning more about burnout and stress management tactics. And in this one of the specific things we're doing is we're diving into and breaking down my entire goal setting best practices and processes and the exact systems that I use to do that. And a big part of that is specificity of your action steps. The next part of the transformation test is that your goal needs to be forward focused. This is another aspect that I think is essential when it comes to goal setting, but also completely unaddressed when it comes to the SMART goal setting system. This is a big difference. If you've ever caught yourself thinking, what's the difference between coaching and therapy? This is one of the big differences between coaching and therapy. Coaching is forward focus. We are focused on improving your futures and not on dwelling on or changing our pasts. And that's a lot of what therapy focuses on, is understanding things that are happening in the past. Coaching is much more forward focused. And I think our goals need to be forward focused as well. How I think of our past is our past experiences and the past events in our lives, those are simply data. I am a former scientist, so I definitely think this way, but those experiences are data, and they're data for telling us what's working and what's not working in our lives from a behavior perspective, from a mindset perspective, from a whole bunch of different perspectives. So when we set goals, we can't dwell on our past, but what we can do is we can focus on and learn from the events of our past so that we can improve our futures. Dwelling in the past, in my experience, only keeps us stuck there. We can learn from it, we can let it inform our future, and then we can move on. So our goals need to be forward focused. The next step of the transformation test is ownership. Another huge part of goal setting is that we have to have ownership over the thing that we are pursuing. This definitely ties back to the piece about it being non-negotiable, but a non-negotiable goal is a goal that we are fully committed to. This piece, ownership, is that kind of gut check moment where we're asking ourselves, or maybe even calling ourselves out for chasing a goal that we don't really want, for chasing a goal because we feel like we should, because someone in our lives wants us to, and not because we want to. The goals we set for others are goals that we don't have ownership over, but the goals we set for ourselves, those are goals that we can own. So if you find yourself when you're goal setting caught up in shoulding or people pleasing or listening to what other people want for you and not what you want for yourself, it's time for that gut check moment when you call yourself out and ask myself, okay, am I owning this? Is this something that I truly want, or is this something somebody else wants for me? Because that is a goal that we probably shouldn't chase after. We have to have that ownership in and of ourselves. We only have 2 more steps left, but we have talked about timely. We have talked about it has to be risky, has to be actionable, has to be non-negotiable, has to be specific, has to be forward focused, and we have to have ownership. We've got 2 more pieces of the transformation test here. And the next one is it has to be relevant. This one is simple, but also kind of complicated in the sense that if you have ever felt yourself get demotivated toward achieving a goal, it's likely because you didn't have enough intrinsic motivation behind that goal. When I say intrinsic motivation, basically what I mean is your goal has to have intrinsic value to you. It has to be important to you on a deeper, more visceral level. We can make our goals more intrinsically valuable to ourselves by tying our goals to our why and to our values. Because what happens sometimes is our goals actually conflict with our why and our values. And if that is the case, well, Houston, we have a problem. The last step of the transformation test is your goal needs to be measurable. This is another part from SMART goal setting. There were some good elements in there, but I felt like it's just missing a lot, or it's twisted in a way that I've never liked. But we've got to make sure our goals are measurable. And we've got to make it measurable so we can know not only how close we are to achieving that goal or how far, but also so that we can gamify actually getting to the goal. I do this in my systems by having a progress tracker toward me achieving the goal. So whenever I click off a step toward achieving a goal, that moves my progress bar up, and therefore I'm more excited about how close I am to achieving that goal. I set up my Notion goal setting system in this particular way because I find I am so much more motivated when I see that progress bar move up than if I didn't have that kind of visual feedback. I also find that this is important psychologically because I think we need to know that our efforts aren't in vain, that we are making progress on achieving the things that we want to achieve. That's why it has to be measurable. But fortunately, I also think that's why we need to have that kind of gamification. This is something that I have inside of my Notion digital planner system, which again is always linked in the description below. Anytime I'm talking about goals or tasks or anything like that, it's linked in below. But I will also be creating a soon to be launched goal setting template in Notion. If you don't want the full one planner, you just want the goal setting template, I'll be creating that very, very soon. So that is it. That is my transformation test, 9 steps for really making sure that you are setting goals that you're going to stay motivated toward pursuing and that you're setting yourself up for success in setting those goals. So first, T is for timely, R is for risky, A is for actionable, N is for non-negotiable, S is for specific, F is for forward focused, O is for ownership, R is for relevant, and M is for measurable. That is the transformation test. Try it out on any goals you are setting going into this New Year's. And with that, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and go ahead and like below. If you've got any comments, questions, anything like that, drop them in the comments. And with that, I will see you next time. Bye.